Hello, everyone. Hi, how are you this evening? I wanted to come on and bring you a story that Derek Chauvin's legal team requests new trial alleging jury misconduct. You know, Derek Chauvin was convicted of murdering George Floyd last month, and now his legal team is asking. They have filed a motion. They have filed a motion in a Minneapolis court requesting a new trial on multiple grounds, including jury misconduct. In the filing, Chauvin's attorney says the former officer should have a new trial in the interest of justice, abuse of discretion that deprived the defendant of a fair trial, prosecutorial and jury misconduct, errors of law at trial, and a verdict that is contrary to law. The jury committed misconduct, felt threatened or intimidated, felt race-based pressure during the proceedings, or failed to adhere to instructions during deliberations in violation of Mr. Chauvin's constitutional rights to due process and a fair trial. Attorney Derek Nelson writes in the filing. He also claims that the court failed to sequester the jury during the trial, which resulted in their exposure to prejudicial publicity regarding the trial during the proceedings, as well as jury intimidation and potential fear or retribution among jurors. Also, among the nearly dozen bases for the motion cited in the filing, Nelson claims the court abused its discretion and violated Mr. Chauvin's rights under the confrontational clause when it failed to order Maurice Hall, a key witness, to testify or admit into evidence his statements to police. Hall was in a car with Floyd the day he died. Judge Peter Cahill squashed a subpoena for him to testify. The cumulative effect of the multiple errors in these proceedings deprived Mr. Chauvin of a fair trial in violation of his constitutional rights, writes Nelson, who is requesting a hearing to impeach the guilty verdict. John Stiles, Deputy Chief of Staff for Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, said in a statement to ABC News, the court has already rejected many of these arguments and the state will vigorously oppose them. Now, this is very interesting that this attorney, is going to try everything that he can to get his client off. That's what, we know that your attorney, a defense attorney, is supposed to do. But it is very clear that Derek Chauvin is guilty. The whole world saw it. And Mr. Nelson, Attorney Nelson, Derek Chauvin needs to serve his prison time for what he's done. He committed an atrocious, inhumane act, and he deserves to serve, Derek Chauvin deserves to serve prison time. He deserves to serve the time because he was found guilty. And you need to accept the guilty verdict that was handed down to your client. This would be a miscarriage of justice if your appeal was to be granted. And I understand that you also oppose a harsher sentence in a separate filing Friday, arguing that Chauvin was authorized under Minnesota law to use reasonable force in the encounter. Well, Mr. Nelson, Derek Chauvin needs to serve every day of his sentence. Matter of fact, he needs more time for what he's done, because this is not the only time that he put a knee on someone's neck. He also abused a 14-year-old and did the same. This is a man that should never see the day of light ever again, even though he didn't get the conviction that he should have got. So he never should see the day of light. And when you talk about his rights being violated, this officer, former police officer, has violated the rights of many citizens that he promised to protect and serve when he was on the police force. He did not protect any of the people he arrested or encountered, and he definitely didn't serve the public like he should have under taxpayers' money. And just being a person, a human being, He violated many rights of people that he encountered regularly, and he got away with it. But he got caught this time on the whole world watching. And so for you, Mr. Attorney Nelson, to come out and to think that he should deserve a new trial and that the guilty verdict should be vacated, should be, thrown out because you feel a certain kind of way when it comes down to you're saying that his rights was violated. But how many rights did he violate? How many times has he violated people's rights, their constitutional rights? And then not only of that, but what about other men rights or women rights that have been violated and not given due process? When you talk about due process, Mr. Nelson, when you talk about violation of constitutional rights, you seem to think that it doesn't apply to, the non-minority group. That's what it seems. But when it comes down to it, Derek Chauvin needs to stay where he's at, beyond prison walls. And he should never really get out. He doesn't deserve to get out for what he did. So, Mr. Nelson, if all of these, the motion you filed, and they already have rejected, already rejected these things that you are requesting, many of these arguments, give it up. Because I'm saying to you, Mr. Nelson, that there are a lot of people in this world that are going to fight this vigorously. Because many people are opposing what you're doing. And you can say that, his rights was violated and due process and the juries felt threatened. But what about all the lives of all other people that have been killed at the hands of these white race soldiers? Did you stand up for them when their rights were being violated? When they were being brutally killed and murdered? Did you stand up for them? And while you watched, you and the whole world watched this officer do what he did, and it comes find out that he's been exposed for doing it to a 14-year-old, and you still want to come out and say that this man jury verdict should be thrown out? Something's got to be seriously wrong. Real wrong for you to think that this man deserves a new trial. See, when the rabbit has the gun, it's no fun. When the shoe is on the other foot, people don't like it. But what about George Floyd's family? What about him himself? Shall we feel an ounce of remorse for the verdict? Shall we feel empathy? The empathy that we feel is that he has not repented. He showed no remorse. That he's headed for perdition. That he hasn't asked for forgiveness. He hasn't apologized to the family. That's a sad day, because God doesn't want to see anybody perish. But when you have committed misdeeds and atrocities against others, and that you've tried to hurt others, and shall we not feel a certain kind of way? I pray for Derek Chauvin's salvation. That's what I pray for. But other than that, he needs to stay exactly where he's at, Attorney Nelson and Derek Chauvin. Suck it up, because you did the crime and you ought to do the time. But one thing that I always say, that people are never prepared for their downfall, and they're never prepared for the comeback, for when they have done wrong. They bring condemnation upon themselves. And Derek Chauvin brought it upon himself because he violated the oath that he took, and he violated the rights of a citizen where he was supposed to protect and to serve, and he had a duty to do so, and he violated in so many ways. And so for John Stiles, Deputy Chief of Staff for Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, I hold you to vigorously opposing them and doing all that can be done to make sure that he stays beyond prison walls and serves his time. And Attorney Nelson, find another case to defend, because we are not going to sit down and remain silent on this matter.